Good morning, everybody. We are so happy and so honored to be here with you, sharing a little bit of what we do in Klein ISD in family engagement. We are very thankful that you took the time to hear what we have to say, and we certainly hope that this presentation leaves you with a lot of enthusiasm to continue expanding your family engagement practice. I am going to share my screen. So if you give me a second. Okay, here we are. So this is the presentation about our multi-tier system of support for family engagement. You have the QR code and the bit.ly that will give you access to the resources that we are presenting today. Full disclosure, there are some resources that you don't have access to because those are internal documents for Klein ISD, but we have a nice surprise for you at the end. And if you need more information about what we are presenting, we also will share our information with you, and we are happy to receive emails or phone calls if you have further questions. My name is Maria Valle Lopez, and I serve as the Director for Family Engagement in Klein ISD, and today I am joined by my amazing coordinator.
Good morning, everyone. I am Lisbeth Olmo, very excited to be here today. And like Maria said, I serve as the coordinator in family engagement.
Okay, so we're going to start with a fun icebreaker. So if you want to please check in and tell us in the chat one misconception about family engagement. If you have been doing this job either for a long time or for a few months or for a few weeks, we know that we sometimes enter into this world of family engagement with certain perceptions, or families join us with certain perceptions. And then while we do the job, we realize that it's not that so much. So if you want to write one misconception about family engagement, and we give the example that to be engaged in your child's education, families need to be present at the school all the time. And we know that that is not the case. So I would love to see some of the things that you have to say in the chat about misconceptions. Let's see. Oops, I cannot see the chat. Family engagement is a one person's job. Thank you, Kim. Yes. I know by now you know that that is not the case, right? This cannot be done by just one person, even though some people believe that because you serve as a liaison, that is your only job. We will turn families to CPS. That is another misconception. Of course, when it's necessary, we sadly will have to do that, but that is not our job. Our job is to build capacity and make sure that families have what they need to make their help the students be successful. Family engagement is hard for secondary campuses. They don't want to come out. Yes, that's another huge misconception, that family engagement only works in elementary settings, and that is very difficult to do it in secondary because the parents don't want to go. And I personally believe that intermediate years, for example, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, those are crucial times when families need to be engaged into their child's education. That we are event planners, Diana, thank you. Glorified event planners is what I call it. A lot of times it's like, well, you have dots and donuts, that's the job for the liaison. And they don't see the depth of the job and truly the difference that everybody who works in family engagement can make when it comes to student achievement, and to bring families together to support that. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Parents don't care if they don't come. Yes. And that is one of the biggest misconceptions, right? The parents don't care, families don't care. And I also believe that as practitioners for family engagement, it is our responsibility to debunk not only this misconception, but all of them. And what we are going to do today is hopefully to provide you with a system to gather the data and debunk all those myths that you put in the chat. Because those are misconceptions, and there is much more about family engagement. There is much more about this job, and we can prove it. And that's what we are doing in Klein ISD with the MTSS for family engagement. Before I continue, I want to tell you we left ample time at the end of this presentation for questions. So if you can please either put them in the chat, write them on a piece of paper while we are talking, and then put them in the chat at the end, and we will try to answer all those questions that you have. I am going to talk a little bit about Klein ISD and our vision. Our vision in Klein ISD is that every student enters with a promise and exits with a purpose. And this is our strategic plan, approved by all our community members and staff and board of trustees. And the two red boxes that you see there is where family engagement lands in our strategic planning. So we have three strategic priorities: cultivate talent, build community, and reimagine learning. And family engagement lands within the build community and the reimagine learning priorities. In build community, we want to equip our parents and families with resources to support the students so they can achieve that vision of entering with a promise and exiting with a purpose. And we also want to encourage positive and productive partnerships between the Klein family and the Klein community. And about 2 years ago, for our joy and pleasure, we landed into the reimagine learning, because we also want to partner with parents and families to guide our students in pursuing and achieving their learning goals for college, career, and military aspirations through innovative pathways of choice. And that for us was very telling, because we want to link everything that we do in family engagement in Klein ISD to student achievement. We want to show that when we have families on our side, when we empower families to support students, that is going to result in improving outcomes for students. And that's exactly what the MTSS for family engagement is doing for us now. And we hope that it will do for you as well. Our goals today is to understand the multi-tier systems of support for family engagement as this resource that is going to help us strengthening family-school partnerships, that is going to help us promote student learning and student achievement, and that is going to support healthy development of students. We also base everything that we do in Klein ISD, the dual capacity building framework for family school partnerships that was developed by Dr. Karen Mapp in Harvard University. And today I want to call your attention to the process conditions in this framework. So the essential conditions, that is this second purple column, what it's telling us is that if we have all these conditions embedded in our family engagement practice, we are going to be more likely to be successful in bringing families together to do this job and this collaboration. And I want you to look at the process conditions, where it states that everything that we do in family engagement must be relational to build on mutual trust. We know that if we don't have families on our side, if they don't trust us, it is very difficult for them to be engaged in their students' education. Everything that we do must also be linked to learning and development. And that's why in Klein ISD, when we work about family engagement, we say we also work for student achievement. We just do it through the families and empowering families. But we strive to having every single practice at the campus level linked to student learning and student achievement. Asset base, we want to make sure that we acknowledge all the gifts that families have and that they bring to the table to help the students, because they are the ones who know the students the most. And we want to acknowledge what they know and use it for the benefit of the student. Of course, culturally responsive and respectful, collaborative and interactive. And when we talk about collaboration, one of the misconceptions is that we in family engagement, only the family school liaison or the person who receives a stipend to do this job is the person responsible for engaging families. Hopefully also when you look at our MTSS, you're going to identify that that is absolutely not true. And I want to say almost impossible. Just one person cannot engage and build a practice, a solid practice of family engagement anywhere. You need a collaboration and you need a community of people. Please.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So we are going to jump in. Before we jump in into the MTSS world, we're going to have this activity and analogy about coffee tea journey. So let's see how various coffee types symbolize the levels of support for family engagement and education. So I want you to imagine that you are at a coffee shop, a cafe, but instead of ordering out loud, you're going to enter in the chat what will be the perfect order for you, whether it's a black coffee or regular tea, coffee with oat milk or a tea with milk. You like the customization, so you like coffee with spices and syrups. So let's take a moment and go ahead and type that option in your chat, please. Thank you. I see that quite a few likes the customization. So yes, I see customized coffee with spices, coffee with oat milk, tea. Okay, some of you like it simple. But like I said, quite a few do like the customization. So what is interesting is that just like your coffee or your tea preference, everyone has different needs and preferences. So no one walks into a coffee shop and says, gets the same drink and still feels satisfied. So the same is true with our families and students. So in MTSS, multi-tier system of support, we think about supporting tiers. So let's think about the first, and Maria is going to be providing you more details about this, but let's start with tier one, the universal tier. That's the black coffee. That's the one that sometimes works for most people, for families. That might be a school-wide communication or open house, newsletters. And then the tier two, that's the one, the coffee with the oat milk. That's the one that now we start adding a little bit more of support. Some families need more specific support, like small groups or general events. So then the tier three is the more intensive one. That's the one that is fully customized, like I see, just like I saw in your chat, is the coffee with the spices and the syrups and the tea with additional ingredients. So that's in family engagement, that's the one that is more specific, that's more intense. That's where you're going to be reaching out more often to those families. So in family engagement, this means more individualized support to the families. So as we move forward today, I want you to think about, are we serving our families in a one-size-fits-all black coffee, or are we creating a menu of supports to families that really meets them where they are?
Thank you, Lisbeth. That's a great reflection, great point to ponder. And she gave you a little bit of a bite size starting for what we are going to do today. But notice that she says, are we serving families? Like we base this presentation on the knowledge that all of you in this call are already doing great things for families. That is nothing that we have to be convinced about. We know the hard work that you put every day into supporting families. And that's what I also you to keep in mind while we go through this process of building an MTSS. You are already doing the job. You are already sending the newsletter. You are already going to the home visit. You are already supporting with parent-teacher conferences. You are already doing things for families. All that we are going to show you today is one way to organize all those interventions, as we call it, and to track the impact that what you are doing it's going to have in student achievement. That's what we are doing. Also, I want to let you know that the MTSS for Families Support was not an invention from Klein ISD. This was developed by Dr. Bachman and Dr. Boone at The Ohio State University. They are the ones who created this MTSS system. And about 4 years ago, we had the privilege to meet with them and to learn about the system. In family engagement in Klein, we were looking for a way to support what we were doing every day. If you have worked in education long enough, there's a saying that is data is what speaks, right? In education, we all need data to show that what we are doing is impacting student achievement. And that's what we wanted. We wanted a way to demonstrate, to gather the data and demonstrate like the work that we do every day, the phone calls, the newsletters, the workshops, the home visits, that is having a positive impact on student achievement. So when we found this and we met with Dr. Backman and Dr. Boone, we were very pleasantly surprised, and we asked them if we could use their system in Klein ISD, to which they say absolutely. If you Google, if you in your Google search, you put MTSS System Family Engagement Ohio State University, it is going to take you straight to their page. And you're going to have all the resources, the same resources that we have, because they want everybody to start using this. So there is no restrictions about this. Because what we have been doing with the MTSS has been going on for 4 years. Now we have learned more things that work for our practice in Klein ISD, and we have customized it and we have tweaked it here and there so it serves our needs. It's the same with you. What we are going to present for you today. If you consider that you need to tweak it, that you need to change it to adjust your needs, please do so. Like, family engagement is a practice. It's something that is constantly changing, and you need to do it for your benefit and the benefit of your community and your students. So please keep those two things in mind. One, you are already doing all of this job. You are doing it. This is nothing that you are going to have to start doing. And two, this is going to provide you with the support to see the impact that your job has on student achievement. So, what is an MTSS? You probably have heard about PBIS and RTI. Um, those are three-tier systems that start with universal base, with all students receive one support, and then you are like dividing them according to the support that they need in different tiers. These three systems of support are scientifically based and data driven. PBIS is basically concerned with behavior. RTI is focuses on academic and behavior. And the MTSS is encompasses all of those. So this is what the MTSS for family engagement have. It's a holistic approach so we can fulfill the needs of families and students. But those are the main differences between all of those. So you can see there the Family Engagement Center for Ohio State University, the logo, this comes from there. MTSS for Family Engagement is a data-driven system that organizes your family engagement interventions and supports so we can apply them intentionally to maximize outcomes from students. So data-driven is data. As I said, in 4 years, we have learned a lot about data. And if you don't know Maria, let me tell you, Maria does not speak numbers. Maria didn't like data and it was a little bit afraid. But somebody along my educational journey taught me that data is very important because it's really going to show what is working and what is not working. And I am going to talk about a little bit and what is not working, because we want to be transparent with you and we want to share our experience and everything that we have gone through, so you have it a little bit easier, but you also understand that this is a process and that you can tweak it and change it along the way. This is our MTSS tier approach to family engagement. So let me start by explaining the tiers. As Lisbeth mentioned, the MTSS has 3 tiers. The first tier is what we like to call the universal systems of support, or the universal interventions, if you want to call it. So this is your black coffee. This is the base, what everybody has. This is your simple tea, right? These are your open houses. This is the newsletter that you send to all families. This is the parent nights that you put together for everybody. This is the remind messages that you send to everyone. These are the academic nights that you plan for the entire school. That is your universal system. What is important to keep in mind about your universal system is that the more robust that first tier is, the less families you're going to have to move to the other tiers. So this is like the foundation of your practice. So let's make sure to identify what is going really well with those universal supports and keep boosting those so the majority of our families benefit of the information that we need to provide to them. That is tier one. Then we move to tier two. And in tier two, we have or we talk about groups of families. So these are groups of families that need a little bit of extra support. The universal is okay for them, but because of the circumstances, they need a little bit more of support. And examples we have parent letters, personalized phone calls, home visits, personal invitations to academic nights, the map data sharing or the data that we share with them individually, behavior contracts, the family school compacts that we share individually with them. So it's a little bit more intentional with groups and families. Let me give you an example. Your open house. Your open house is your universal support, tier one. What am I going to do for those group of families, probably of the freshmen who are coming in new to intermediate of high school? And I know that families are probably a little bit scared to go to open house and to send their babies to a new school. So with them, I am going to do a second intervention. I probably am going to grab a group of families from freshmen and I am going to send a personalized letter inviting them to come to the open house. Or we're going to split some phone calls with the teachers, and those teachers are going to personally invite the families to that open house night. So they are all coming to open house, right? We did the same for everybody, but now we are, for that group of people, we are being a little bit more intentional. And then we go to the tier three. This is the more intense and frequent intervention and is for a small number or individual families that need beyond tier one and tier two. So these interventions are very strategic for those families. Let's continue with the same example of open house. You already sent your invitation for the entire school, tier one. You chose your group of freshmen, right? Tier two. But now you know that you have some frequent flyers in discipline and attendance that could really benefit from the information that is going to be given in open house. So with those families, you probably are not going to send just one invitation. You're also going to do one invitation and one home visit. And you probably are going to want to check after open house and see if they have any questions or if they miss the information, and you're going to send them the information personally. So know that we are really differentiating according to the need of the family. So tier three is that coffee with all the creams and the spices and the syrups, because we know that that family needs a little bit more of support. Something important to notice is that you can use the same intervention in the three tiers. So if we're going to talk about, for example, the open house invitation that you send, you can use the same verbiage in the tier one. You can use the same verbiage in the phone call or the letter for tier two. And then you're gonna take the same verbiage in the personal phone call and home visit that you're gonna do for tier three. So this is not about more work. This is about being strategic and using what you are already doing intentionally. And as it says there in the blue, an intervention can be used in different tiers if the intensity and the frequency are adjusted. I'm gonna exit my full screen because I want to show you this that you have access to. This is a one pager that we developed for our team for family engagement, where it has certain supports and strategies that we use in each one of the tiers, and you are welcome to use it. So all of you, when you access this presentation, have access to this handout. And that is going to be on slide 10.
Okay, so speaking of being strategic, I'm sure that by now you are super curious how this MTSS looks like with our staff. So in the how, first of all, we need to identify the needs of the family. And here you're going to see a couple of scenarios. First one, a teacher shares student concerns in speech, academics, behavior. The next scenario will be a counselor recommends interventions as well as collaborates with our family school liaison. I should say that we do have a family school liaisons, and they do not work in isolation. They are supporting and collaborating with teachers and counselors and other staff members. Also can be that the family school liaison identify the need in the family and begins with the support. Um, Lastly, but not least, that is they gather student and family information during conferences. They noticed that during that conference, the family was in need of attendance support and things like that. So these are the ways in how we work with school staff and how they gathered or identify the needs. Then we want to go to C. Do you want to add anything before we go next, Maria?
Just like we are debunking another one of the misconceptions for family engagement. Like this is not the work of one person. You can see our family school liaisons work collaboratively because they don't know at all. They don't know everything that happens with families in the schools. So that is that relationship building, not only with families, but also with other staff members. So the staff members understand the role of the family school liaison or parent liaison. I know it has different names in different districts, but this is not the job of just one person. This is an entire community coming together for the families.
So here is how our family school liaisons provide support. So they gather and plan. They seek information from teachers and staff. We are blessed that we are encouraged the liaisons to attend the leadership meetings. So that's a way in which they can gather and learn about families and students. They take notes on support areas, resources, curriculum. They provide workshops to the families. They select materials to share with the families. And after they gather all that data, they connect and provide the support by offering tailored parent workshops. So maybe the families in tier 2, they target those families and provide that kind of workshops for those families, as well as schedule conveniently considered virtual meetings. So they provide a plethora of ways on how to communicate with families, not only in person. So the family school liaison's role is to provide families with supports, interventions, and track the impact of these interventions in student achievement.
Thank you, Lisbeth. So right here and then, we are debunking another misconception. We are not glorified event planners. We have a lot of work to do. If we want to produce results for student achievement, the planning, let me tell you, our family school liaisons are very busy with the planning of interventions, with the gathering of data, with the following up with families. That is the true spirit of a family school liaison in Klein ISD. Of course, we put together a lot of events and very nice event, very fun because families need that too, connected to student achievement. But there is a reason and a structure behind for that. So that's another misconception that we debunk right there and then. We are not only event planners. Okay. So this is where the fun begins. When you get access to our presentation, I'm going to ask you to please click in this slide because in order for us to gather all this data, Ohio State University provided us with a tracker, a sample tracker, so we could really sort and gather all that data. In 4 years, this has had multiple revisions. I think this is our fourth or fifth tracker that we have, not only because in our practice we have seen that some things were needed, but also because our team started telling us, well, this is not a good way. We need a column for this, a column for that. So this is the fourth or fifth tracker that we have. So remember at the beginning, we told you, just change this however you need to change it. Like, please change this however you need to change it. So I am going to exit here. I'm sorry. And I want to, when you click in the slide, you're going to see this tracker. This is a sample tracker. So the cases that you have there are totally fictional, okay? And the names and the numbers are totally fictional. Let me tell you what this tracker has. First, we have a link to the one pager that we share with you as a reminder for our team of what they can do when it comes to interventions. Also, we have included, or have divided this tracker in 4 assessments, one per quarter. Why? Because our liaisons follow up with families at the end of the quarter when students receive their grades. Remember, we want to show that what we are doing impacts student achievement, that what we are doing is moving the needle for the student, what we're doing with the family, okay? Then we ask them to make a copy. We tell them that they have to create different tabs per student. And we have another document where they can take notes. That was one of the changes that we did at the beginning, because at first we had everything in the same tracker. We had the information and the notes, and it was proven to be too much. So they asked us to create a separate tracker with the notes for them to write the notes. I'm going to show it to you in a second, but let me go through the tracker first. So you see, let me make it a little bigger, that we have here. Oh, what happened? It's not working. Sorry about that. We have here the student name, the grade level, who is the teacher, and the parent contact. And then we have the areas in need of support. In Klein ISD, after the first year of implementation, we identify 4 areas of support that are crucial for our practice. 1 is academics, 2 is attendance, 3 is behavior, and 4 is basic needs. Those were the 4 major areas that we identified in which families were asking for support. Then, and you're going to notice that this is all color coded. Why color coded? Because when we sort the data, it's easier for the eye to have it color coded. So the first intervention that we have is in academics, and we have a drop-down menu with the goals that we have also identified in 4 years. What are the goals for each one of those interventions? So red is academic, and we have what is the goal? Connecting the families with math resources, ELA, social studies, science. What is the goal of the intervention? And then we propose the tier support. So depending on the family needs, if they need, generally we don't have tier 1 in this tracker because that is the universal support. We have tier 2 and tier 3. So is that family good with tier 2 intervention, or we really need to zone in into tier 3 to be more intentional and have interventions more often? So they start tracking, and these are the 4 quarters, the assessment quarters that we have in Klein ISD, right? This is the dates for this year. They change every year. And if the family school liaison started with that family at the beginning of the school year, then she will have to report starting in quarter 1. And let's say that that family, after all the follow-ups, was golden after assessment of quarter 2, so she doesn't need to follow up for quarter 3 or 4. If the family comes in quarter 3, she will have to have, or he, a follow-up and assessment for quarter 3 and quarter 4. So it depends on where the family school liaison grabbed that family in which quarter. But they have to report after each quarter. How? Why? Because then when the students are ready to receive the grades, The family school liaison is going to contact all those stakeholders that they work with, and they are going to see, in this case of academics, okay, I provided a lot of supports for families for reading. So let me see if this student, which I forgot the name, if Caleb is doing a little bit better in reading. Let's see what is happening. And then she's going to provide those assessments in the notes that I'm going to show you in a second. This column that says intervention completed is very important, because after the first and second year, we were noticing that our team was studying everything that they were doing, but there was never a resolution. They were never closing the case, as we call it. And we started wondering, okay, but you did all this, and what happened? Did they improve? They didn't improve? And we noticed that there was a lot of fear providing the information, like, because maybe sometimes it doesn't work, and they didn't want to feel like they were not doing anything. So we had a real good conversation. This is not a punitive document. This is not a slap in the hand of people, administrators, families, liaisons, because the student is not improving. We need to know if the student is not improving, because then we need to go back to the drawing board and see, okay, what we are doing is not working. So what else do we need to do? And that's why we put, they must check that the intervention was completed, meaning that when I go to the notes, and I am going to open that document right here, I am going to see everything that I have done with the student and what happened with the student. So you notice that we asked them to make tabs with each student. Again, all this is fictional, people. These are not real. Um, with the student, and they are tracking the follow-ups that they made, and they finally put if the intervention was completed. They put the point of contact, and here is where they give us all the notes and the information. Let me tell you what has happened with these documents. In 4 years, we have already experienced a lot of benefits. For example, at the end of the school year, when sadly one of our students has to fail because has been absent a lot, and then families tell us that, oh no, we don't understand why we never receive any information from the school. Nobody supported us, and we have our liaisons producing this beautiful document and showing all the interventions and all the times when they work with the family. The same with academics if they have to fail. We also have identified when in areas, for example, of basic needs, we have identified a lot of families that initially are presented like they have other type of need, and then after following up with the family, there's the realization that it's a basic needs issue. And once we help them with that basic needs issue, other areas start improving. So we have the data to prove that what our liaisons do on campus is beneficial. So that is the tracker. Okay, Lisbeth.
Okay, before I jump into trials and triumphs, trials and triumphs, I received some requests. We will be sharing with you the template, a copy just for you, at the end of the presentation. So like Maria mentioned, 4 years ago, we not only changed the tracker, we had liaisons working in isolation, principals thinking that the interventions were for students, not families. Not all the areas were aligned. And so there were, data that it was not being completed, like Maria said, that those interventions and cases were not closed. So because we knew that this was something that it was new to principals and to family school liaisons, what we did was to make sure that we met with principals, provided with information about what MTSS is, and the main purpose was to target those families. So now, after all those years, we are happy to say that our family engagement MTSS aligns to the MTSS in academics and behavior. So now everybody's on the same page when it comes to MTSS. The staff understands and collaborates with the liaisons. In the beginning, like I said, they were working in isolation. Now they are invited to leadership meetings and conferences and things like that so that they can gather the data and then provide support in collaboration with teachers, attendants, and counselors. After 4 years of implementation, staff sees data and how family engagement supports student achievement. Maria will be going to show you a report in which provides you with more details. Also, over the years, we have seen an increase of family contacts and completed interventions. I do create and monitor all the trackers for the campuses, in which every month I provide them with an update of all the cases, if there anything that it's missing. So our liaisons and staff members are very competitive. So it's been wonderful to see that the numbers have increased throughout the years. You want to show the reports or say anything else?
Yes. Okay. So thank you, Lisbeth. We wanted to share with you our trials too, because this was not perfect from the beginning. It's still not perfect. Okay. We have made strides, but there was a lot of confusion at the beginning. Like, why are the liaisons working directly with the students? They are not supposed to do that. They're supposed to work with the families. So we had to really be very clear and intentional. And as Lisbeth says, she has the beautiful job of handling all the data and polishing the trackers, very intentional too in meeting with the liaisons at every campus and following up with everything that they are doing and guide those conversations. Our department also made a point in meeting with the principals individually and telling them what we were doing to debunk that myth that we are working directly with students and now that is going to interfere with RTI and what is going to happen. We were able to do that, okay? And I want to show you now a report. So you don't have access to this report. You are not going to have access. This is an internal document for Klein ISD. But at the end of every school year, we put together a report summarizing what happened with the MTSS in the campuses where we have family school liaisons. And this is shared with all the administrators and the leadership. Why? Because we want them to see the areas that we need to improve because we always identify areas for improvement. And that's, remember, I told you, this is important to see what is not working, the interventions that are not working. If we are putting workshops every month and nobody is attending, well, we need to do something different because it's not working. And this data is going to tell the administrators the good and the not so good that is going on. So I'm going to walk you through the report. As I said, you don't have access to this, but we wanted to show you a little bit of the results. These are for the last school year. Let me present. So first, I give them an executive summary of what the MTSS is and what we are doing. We tell them what they are going to see in this report. We're going to quantify and categorize the family contacts made by the schools. We're going to analyze the trends in family engagement across the different areas that we identify that are academics, behavior, well-being. And we're going to inform strategic planning for enhancing family engagement. So we're going to advise from our point of view what we think that could happen for the next school year. These are the 4 areas that we work on in Klein ISD: attendance, academics, behavior, and basic needs. And we start with the data here. So this is the data from the schools. In the light blue, you have the number of families served under MTSS for family engagement. And in the darker blue, you have the number of interventions completed, right? The idea is that the 2 bars are equally the same height. You can see that it's not in all of the cases, but remember what I told you. Sometimes we don't see a closure for the case. And we need that because we need to know was there resolution or there wasn't. We're going to start with attendance. You're going to see in blue the numbers of families served. The red is the average number of contacts per family. Why is that important and why we started doing that in the second year? Because we need to know across the board in Klein ISD how many times are we contacting families for each category. So we did an average, and then you're going to see in yellow the interventions completed. So you're going to see in this blue square, that 10 campuses reported interventions in the area of attendance. They served 91 families. There were 86 attendance interventions completed, which is not bad. From 95, 86, we want to see 90 and 91, but 86. And there was an average of 7.6 interventions per campus. Why is this important? After the first year, when we did the average of contacts, we noticed that in order for attendance to improve, we need to call the families or contact the families with attendance information at least 7 times. This was last year. If we call 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, not much success. But when we really bombard families with attendance information is when we saw the needle moving and the students improving attendance. And this school, Epsilon's Elementary, observed a reduction in tardiness and absenteeism following the family-focused interventions. So again, that's data. We continue with academics. And in the spirit of all transparency, this was the area that had the lowest interventions last year, which it was good to know because everything that we do in family engagement in Klein ISD must be linked to student achievement. So we had a conversation with our principals and our liaisons, and we told them, hey, your liaison is an essential part for academics to improve. If you let us know what families need assistance in academics area, our family liaisons can help you with that support. In this case, a great resolution was that Kaiser Elementary served 7 families, completed all the interventions in academics with positive outcomes, including academic progress in students. So we could quantify that after all the interventions that our family liaisons did, there was moving in the needle for academics. Then we go with behavior. You see, 8 campuses reported behavior. This is important. Not all the campuses report interventions in all 4 categories. It also depends on the need of the campus. So this is a piece of advice for you. If you are wanting to start this MTSS for family engagement, choose 1 or 2 areas the first year. You don't have to do all 4. Maybe the main concern at your district or school is attendance. Well, go ahead, start with attendance. And you start calibrating your system, and you're not going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to learn more about how to use it. So 8 campuses reporting interventions, and in behavior, we had an average of 5.5 interventions per campus. Again, that means that they had to be contact with the family for at least 5 times in order to see improvement with behavior. I'm sorry, I went the wrong way. And then the basic needs intervention. This is one area in which we have the most referrals to the family school liaisons. We noticed an average of 4.4 interventions per campus. At Island Elementary School, support staff and families collaborated closely, successfully addressing the basic needs of 12 families by providing essential resources through 12 completed interventions. So there was a resolution. We know what happened with the families, the student progressed, and they closed the interventions. We then provide them with a brief analysis of what we see with the data, and then we give them suggestions. And for example, in academics, as I mentioned before, we ask the principals to involve the liaisons in those academic discussions, and Lisbeth also explained at the beginning, we told them, bring the family school liaisons to the leadership meetings, to the PLCs, so they know the families of which students need a little bit more of extra support. And I think, Lisbeth, correct me if I am wrong, but for what you have seen with the data so far, we are seeing that those interventions have increased this year. You're muted.
Yes, they have been increased.
So there's also a lot of intentionality from our part in continue encouraging the principals and the liaisons to work together in that area. Okay, for all of you who were requesting access to the initial tracker that I show you, we have a gift for you. We have the gift of a tracker, your very own copy, so you can make it. So when you receive the presentation, if you have access, you go to this slide, you have to click the entire slide, and it's going to force you to make a copy of the document. So you're going to make a copy of the document, and there you go. You have your very own tracker that you can change and customize, and you can customize the drop-down menus, you can customize everything. And also here, you're going to find the link to make a copy of the document for the notes. So we wanted to give you that gift because we think that is going to probably make it a little bit faster when you start implementing the MTSS, and feel free to change it and modify it accordingly and however you guys want it. Oops, I went to the wrong slide. Okay, so this is something that I like to do because I like to know how the information that we provided resonated with you. Um, so we call it the wow, the pow, and the chow. The wow, if you can write your wow, a big highlight or takeaway that the information that we provided you with left you. Or maybe you had a pow, like, wow, I hadn't thought about that and really stopped me in my tracks to make a change. Or a chow, the idea that you will be chewing on, or the practical application that you are ready to implement when you receive all the materials and you said, okay, I am empowered and I want to start doing this. So if you can please put it in the chat. Yes, the analogy of the coffee, that is the brainchild of Lisbeth. It's very, very useful. And also for your staff, so they understand what this is and why we're doing it. It was interesting to learn that let me see, let me go back. A great way to collect and use valuable data. Yes. I love how the tracker helps us to be very intentional in meeting the needs of our families. Yes, that's the word, is intentional, Christina. You're truly being intentional, and you can really customize and evaluate what you are doing is helpful or not. Because a lot of times as educators, we have these big ideas in our heads and we put them out and we don't see any traction. And it's because we're not having that two-way conversation with families of what they really need. Let me see. The coffee explanation is the explanation for MTSS. It is interesting to learn that it took 7 Falcons for families to really take it serious with the students. Yes, that was one of the things that was a pow for us when we started seeing the average number. And, usually in schools, we have our notice to parents, your child wasn't at school, and then we put them probably in the report card, and then that's it. We don't do anything else. And when we really started zoning in attendance and calling again and showing the parents, some of the parents didn't know where to look for attendance. That was the problem. They didn't know, especially in secondary. And they told us, well, we drop off our child every morning at the high school. Why are you telling me that he's not at school? Well, he's at school, but he's not going into the class. And they didn't know how to follow that. And in Skyward, the parents can do that. So that was one of the interventions that we started doing, like asking the families, do you know how to track your child's attendance? Other families, the misconception in attendance was like, if I send a note, the absence disappears. That was another misconception that we could start tackling in our interventions. So yeah, it was very interesting for us as well. Okay, for the liaisons to push into meetings in order to really help support families and not just plan events. You're very welcome, Fallon. It hasn't been easy, but then when you have this data to prove their work and their value, then it becomes easier. We always have had great support from our leadership. Let me start by that. But when you provide administrators with data, and you show them how their day is scheduled and what they are doing and the impact that is having, it's a wow. Okay, well, I can bring her then to this meeting because I know this staff member is going to really support this goal that we have. So that was also very important. A child thinking on how to merge and implement with what we already have. Parent liaisons to not feel overwhelmed and all the places to document. Yes, that is a great point, and we have acknowledged that. Lisa probably wants to talk a little bit more about that, how to work with the liaisons so they don't feel overwhelmed. And it wasn't easy. Everything that is new, you find resistance. That is with anything that you want to implement. And that was not easy. But a lot of support, and I am going to let Elizabeth to talk a little bit about that so they understand that this is really a way to support what they are doing.
So yes, first of all, to making sure that they know that this is data that is going to help the practice. Once they understand that this is data that is going to support their practice and the families, they understand that this is something that is important to gather, as well as those conversations with principals, because sometimes the same information that we're collecting is the information that maybe a principal wants also to gather. So just to make sure that we have open communication, and that way they can just document in one place, if that makes sense.
Also, thank you, Lisbeth. Also, let me tell you this. If you work with Title I funds, you must be documented with your family school liaisons or the staff that receives Title I funding for their role are doing. That we must do that if we receive Title I funding. So the MTSS is a great way to document what your staff working on family engagement being funded with Title I is receiving. The tracker to support our families and all the work we do behind the scenes. Thank you. That was, oh, I didn't see your name. But yes, behind the scenes is a great word. A lot of principals didn't know the capabilities of a family school liaison and everything that they could do because they were thinking in the box of events, right? And that was all. So that also opened a whole new world of possibilities for a lot of principals in how to work with their family school liaisons. Investing in a wide range of interventions when connected with families can make a meaningful difference by using varied intentional strategies to meet families where they are. We strengthen trust, increase engagement, and ultimately see more positive outcomes in PFA. Thank you, Denora, for your comment. Absolutely. That was also see the positive outcomes. And sometimes in family engagement, as somebody said, behind the scenes, we go like the unsung heroes, right? And we probably will continue that, but now we have the data to support that what we do really impacts those babies entering with a promise and exiting with a purpose in Klein ISD.
Maria, I wanted to answer to Diana Moreno.
Mhm.
I think she said that if it's in Excel, we
Google
have
Sheet.
folders and everything in Google Drive, so it's Google Sheets.
Mhm. Mhm. We do
It's
everything in Google. We are a Google district. We have everything in Google. Um, I've been learning about the MTSS with education, and this is a brain kiss learning with family services. Oh, Michelle, thank you. And yes, remember, I don't know if you remember at the beginning of our presentation, um, and one of the trials also, Lisbeth mentioned that it was difficult for the rest of our staff to understand MTSS. Well, this past year, we also Klein ISD as a whole went into the MTSS for education, for academics. So now everybody understands what we started doing 4 years ago, because we started 4 years ago with MTSS for family engagement, and now it's uniform at the district level. So it's easier also for us to merge those two things and to provide the interventions that we need for families and students. Thank you. Make it work for me. Okay. Ciao. I'm trying to go to all the comments. I think that's it. Okay, I have the last slide is our information. Pamela says this makes a lot of sense for parent family engagement. We hope so. It did make a lot of sense for us organizing us in this manner. And this year, something that I didn't mention, generally, Lisbeth and I were sorting through all the data, which is an overwhelming task, but we did it with a lot of excitement. And we learned a lot of things about the campuses while we were sorting the data, because once you see it in numbers and you see it on a screen, you're like, oh my gosh, and we want our liaisons to have the same sense of excitement and also to understand and learn about what they are doing. So this year, we put together an intentional, very specific training in how to sort the data in the tracker for our team of liaisons. So each one of them are going to sort their own data so they also have those realizations and they experience that learning, because we learn a lot. We saw how many touch points we had to have with families for attendance. We saw that basic needs, when you solve that problem, you solve a lot of problems. We saw a lot of things, even with individual cases. So we want the liaisons to experience the same thing with their data. So they are going to be doing that this year and reporting to us. This is our information. Those are our emails. As I said, remember, it's slide 10. Slide 10 is where you can make the copy of that tracker. The initial slide that I presented, you don't have access to that one because that I use for my presentation only. But in the tracker on slide 10, you're going to have the tracker and the access to the notes in the link on the top in the yellow box. We will be happy to answer any other questions you have. If you just send us an email, we will be happy to connect with you. And I don't think I have any more questions, but I want to really thank Region 16 for the honor of inviting us to present today and to share a little bit of what we do in Klein ISD for family engagement.